Speaking of the fake accent in Jasmine Crockett, we've got to play this, that her miraculous turnaround. Normally, if you grow up, talking street, most people who would run for federal office might aspire to like get rid of that accent and just speak with a regular accent. And she went the opposite way in order to up her cool factor and wound up making a fool out of herself. Jasmine Crockett, before and after, SOT 6.
My mind, I'm thinking, I just got to Austin and I had to meet 5 people to get here. I don't know about this.
So y'all don't know what white privilege looks like, but I'm gonna show you a little bit of something.
It's a huge responsibility. The congressional seat is over 4 times as large as my House seat.
So trying to get clarification.
Look, calm down. Calm down.
No, because this is what you do.
And I was just starting to get into the rhythm of doing constituent services.
They send them to Texas, they send them to Florida. Every deplorable state that we can think about, they usually coming out of y'all's think tank.
There was someone that talked to me and said, in fact, a former ambassador in the Clinton administration.
Don't tell me to calm down because y'all talking them ways and then
You're out of control.
He said, Jasmine, what you have to realize is that if you are really going to make change, it's not going to be in the Texas House. He said, you did a great job playing defense, but you have a chance to play offense. Someone on this committee then starts talking about somebody's bleach blonde, bad built butch body.
Okay, so she's a fraud. And it didn't take much for even the Texas Democrats, who are real Democrats, to see right through her, Glenn. And she got that seat running as the girl in the red velvet jacket there, who was just sort of sweet sounding, normal, had gone to law school, had been a public defender, and was trying to represent her hometown community. And then she turned into this sort of wannabe rap star with the way she spoke and what she said and some sort of badass street fighter. And they bounced her ass right out of there.
Yeah, that is one thing I actually disagreed with you about in your intro when you said you thought she was headed toward an MS Now show. I actually think she's headed to like some Housewives franchise on Bravo. Like that's always what she's most reminded me of.
Good bet too.
It's the way she just like, she is good at attracting attention by turning herself into kind of like a freak show. And so cable news loves her, can't get enough of her, eats her up. She's interesting. Like even in the, you talk about her more than you would just like the average Democrat. You have to give her that. But they're all negative traits, right? Like if I go onto the street and start stabbing my eyes out with a fork, a lot of people are going to look at me more than like the people walking to their office. It doesn't mean it's a positive thing, but it is true. I'll attract more attention. She's figured out that game. And that's the thing, Megyn, like Donald Trump proved more than anybody and understood more than anybody, media attention and fame and just having attention always being on you is an incredible political asset. She had that advantage a zillion times over James Talarico because she did get catapulted by the CNNs and MSNBCs, now into this national figure. And her name recognition was 40 points higher. But the more they looked at her and the more they heard from James Talarico, they're like, it isn't even just an electability issue where they thought James Talarico is more electable. It's just that they turned away from her. And her campaign matched that diva behavior that you were describing. They were aggressive with reporters, kicking reporters out who wrote negatively about her, barely even campaigning, not doing any of the things that they barely had a campaign. It was just a disorganized mess that she thought she was going to win on the strength of her personality. The more Texans saw personality, Texas Democrats.
We covered this last year, that she's lazy, that she wasn't showing up to Capitol Hill for the hearing. She didn't want to do her job. She wanted to work from home. She wanted to be driven around in fancy cars and, make sure somebody opens the door for her and be treated like, the queen she thinks she is. Like, that doesn't get you anywhere. I'm sorry, but like, if you're not willing to work hard, especially as a young person, my God, like that's when we have energy, like the 32-year-old me had a lot more energy than I have today. I still have decent energy, but my point is simply, if you're out of it when you're still in your 30s, forget about it. Plus, she's just a liar. Like she wanted us to believe over and over that she had some like hard Scrabble background and she really climbed her way up, just like AOC. And these were lies. Benny Johnson went to her hometown and actually figured out what her real background was in an amazing clip. Here it is again, SOT 7. We played it when he first hit with it about 6 months ago. Watch.
It is rough, it is tough, it is hood, and it is foul, just like Jasmine Crockett. That's the whole persona. She's a fraud. This is where Jasmine says she's from, but this is where Jasmine's really from.
Welcome to St. Louis, specifically the Republican suburbs of St. Louis, with the mansions, country clubs, and private schools. This is where Jasmine Crockett was raised. We're talking quiet suburbs, manicured lawns, college brochures in the mailbox.
This is where Jasmine Crockett went to school. It's called the Mary Institute and St. Louis Country Day School. It's one of the most prestigious institutions in the entire country, also one of the most expensive. Did your high school have its own private Wimbledon? Did your high school have its own aquatic center on site? Did your high school have its own private dock and pond teeming with colorful fish and wildlife? I think not.
Well done, Benny Johnson. Mine didn't. I went to public school in upstate New York. My parents paid taxes and they had to take me. How about yours, Glenn?
I went to public school as well. We definitely did not have a pond with exotic fish, nor a full-on Wimbledon or anything even remotely similar to that. You know, it's like the way Megyn, that AOC, tries to pretend that she's from the Bronx when in reality she's from Westchester. Yes. And this is, I wanted to make this point about, Jasmine Crockett. It's like, if somebody grows up in the inner city or, in a predominantly Black neighborhood where in the South or wherever, where people do speak that way, and then they kind of learn when they enter a professional context to speak a little bit differently. I think we all do that, right? We speak differently with our childhood friends or our family and differently in a public context. That would be one thing. But what she's doing is almost like a minstrel show. That's not how she speaks. And as you said, when she ran for office, that wasn't how she spoke. She was a public defender, but she was also a corporate lawyer. This is what I'm saying. Like, she is I think a lot of people look at Black Democrats, especially like Black women, and if they're particularly boisterous, even more so like a Maxine Waters or whatever, and they say, oh, they must be like super left wing. The reality is often they're not. Mostly they're like funded by AIPAC. They're funded by Wall Street. Maxine Waters was the chair of the Financial Services Committee for years, and all the bankers loved her. These are, people who go and make themselves, as Marjorie Taylor Greene said about AOC, establishment tools. And that's what makes it extra offensive that Jasmine Crockett pretends to be this, because if it'll, Jesse Jackson would speak like that. But Jesse Jackson grew up like that. That was his politics.
That was authentic.
Totally different. Exactly.
And no one ever commented on it when it was obviously authentic. It's only when it's an obvious affect that you make it a thing, that it's fair game.
Yeah, it becomes patronizing. Who is this for? I mean, it's probably mostly for white liberals, to be honest. I think that's really her big fan base.
That's why Rachel's so enamored.
By the way, Megyn, just one thing. I was amazed. I'm always amazed by this. I don't know if you are, but when you said go listen to these MS Now liberals saying how great both Jasmine Crockett and James Talarico are, and the first voice is Nicole Wallace. I still Nicole Wallace 20 years ago was George Bush and Dick Cheney's communications director, defending the Iraq War, defending every one of those conservative policies. And she supposedly just got alienated from Republicans because she didn't like Trump, but she had a complete transformation and turned into an overnight liberal for her career, talking about frauds. But in any event, the idea that these two are the future of the Democratic Party. And notice it's all surface stuff. It's all surface. It has nothing to do with the agenda.
Let's check in on another James Talarico sot to see if he's the future of the Democrat Party and is going to fly as a statewide choice in Texas. Here he is in November 2022 at his home church.
Before we go further, I want to acknowledge that our trans community needs abortion care too. Defending trans Texans is something we have to do every day at the state capitol. And you better believe I'll be giving sermons on that too. So when I use the word woman, it should not be understood as an exhaustive term, but rather as a lens through which to understand, examine, and interrogate patriarchy. Similar to how we specify anti-Black racism when talking about police violence. Sometimes it's helpful to locate a particular moment within a particular movement.
Okay. Those clips are going to be on loop until we get to the general election, whether it's Talarico versus Paxton or Talarico versus Cornyn. And frankly, I think it's going to be Paxton. I feel like Texans have had enough of the neocon Cornyn. Like they're ready for something new. Paxton's got his own baggage, but he seems pretty beloved and he's Trumpian, which is, all the rage, very in for obvious reasons. So we'll see. But can you imagine this guy versus Ken Paxton in a race, Glenn? He's going to get eaten alive.
Well, just first of all, like, it is interesting because Christianity can have kind of a left-wing tinge, like in Latin America, for example. It's very associated with the left, but not by calling God non-binary and saying the Bible says that trans people needs abortions. It's usually like a left-wing populist economic populism, like Jesus taught us,
or immigration.
Or immigration, exactly.
In my church,
you can make
Catholic Church,
absolutely, and yeah, I mean the Pope has against the death penalty. Always against wars, condemning aggression. So you can definitely construct a very Christian, like genuinely Christian argument for like left-wing or liberal economic populism and foreign policy non-interventionism for sure. But that stuff, I don't know, maybe it was 2021. I don't know if he's from an extremely liberal district. It was like right in the wake of the Black Lives Matter and all the like obligatory speech where they all started talking that way. It just aged so poorly. And I don't think that, by the way, that most voters vote on trans stuff. But if there's a perception that somebody's so far afield, like sounding is like, he's not just saying like, hey, let's be kind and, decent and tolerant to our trans neighbors. He's saying the Bible teaches that trans people have to get abortions too. Like it just, that stuff sounds so extremist that even though that isn't their main issue or close to it, it makes them seem, again, like very distant from their everyday lives and what they think about and how they speak.
Yes. Especially when he's saying God is non-binary. Like all of it is going to make wonderful campaign ads. I know the Democrats today, some of them are heaving a sigh of relief that he prevailed over Crockett, who many did not believe had a chance at statewide office in Texas. And they think this guy is sort of the kinder, gentler, more sellable candidate. Maybe he is versus Crockett, but I'm not entirely sure of that, to be honest, because he's pretty radical in his policies. Think about this. In 2006, $20,000 equaled roughly 33 ounces of gold at spot price. Okay, $20,000 got you 33 ounces. At today's prices, those 33 ounces would be worth about $165,000. That would have been a very good investment. And that's why so many smart Americans do diversify a portion of their savings into precious metals. They're thinking about what's going to happen in the next 20 years. And it's also why you should consider buying gold from Birch Gold Group. For thousands of years, gold has been a store of wealth. And today, it is a crucial part of any balanced strategy. Even better, Birch Gold can help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered retirement account in gold. All you have to do is text MK to the number 989898, and that will give you a free info kit on gold. There's no obligation. It's just useful information from which you can make a decision. With an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and tens of thousands of happy customers, let Birch Gold help you diversify with gold. Now that's peace of mind. Again, text MK to 989898 today. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.